All right, how's everybody doing? This is Jake and Brian appearing via Skype here with a dual
How's it going, everybody?
breakdown video. This is a experiment that we're kind of testing out to see how this works out because Brian and I live in different states, so it's kind of and I feel like for our kind of cult following that we have, we'd like to get out some videos where we're both able to talk at the same time, so we can kind of get a good dynamic going and a good conversation on the issues at hand. So today we're going to be talking about some rather early predictions for the upcoming John Cena versus Dwayne The Rock Johnson match scheduled to take place in Miami, Florida at WrestleMania 28. I don't believe we're already up to 28, but
Yeah.
Brian, is there any initial thoughts that you want to get out in the open before we start here?
Well, I mean, this is kind of backtracking a little bit,
Yeah.
but I really think what happened at Survivor Series, other than the entire show being kind of an abortion, minus the main event, I really think that they set up very well with the whole dynamic between Cena and The Rock tagging, and then The Rock after the match, Rock bottoming it. I think it's great. It's a great way to keep it, in the back of your mind going into WrestleMania. Like you can say, like for the next 2 months, oh well, no matter what happens here, Cena has to face The Rock. So I think it really built well in that regard.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And the one thing that I was interested in your thoughts about is that which no one has seemed to really touch on yet, and it's something that I think about quite often when I hear about this match coming up. Do you think this is the biggest match of our generation?
I mean, I think it's in my opinion, it's something that's like I think it's just kind of like a almost bittersweet like nostalgia moment.
Yeah,
The Rock's back in the day in the '90s, early 2000s, he was the marquee guy. It's always billed as the past versus the future every time they talk about this match.
yeah,
It's tough for me to say it's the biggest match simply because it'd be one thing if The Rock came back, sort of like a circa Shawn Michaels return
yeah,
and was
yeah,
wrestling.
yeah,
Let's say he wrestled from the minute he hosted WrestleMania last year until WrestleMania coming up. I think there'd be a lot more potential in it. Granted, they probably would have wrestled once already, but I really think it's tough for me to say it's the biggest match of our generation simply because he's been gone for such a long time.
yeah,
And, obviously it didn't look like he had missed much of a step
yeah.
at
He
Survivor
may have
Series.
even
I
added
mean, I
some.
kept telling my
Yeah,
dad, my
yeah,
buddies, that he looked, he was yoked. It was the biggest I think I'd ever seen him.
yeah.
But I mean, it's really tough for me to off the top of my head think of a match that's bigger
You're right. So I
than
was
this
gonna
one.
say,
But I
yeah,
just it's tough for me also at the same time to say it's the biggest one of our generation. Like, I mean, I
yeah.
don't know what are your thoughts on that. Like, I think potentially a CM Punk and Stone Cold match, if Stone Cold could get healthy, could potentially be a little bit bigger and probably a little more meaningful to me because you've got these two like um, I'm kind of going off track here, but you have these two guys who are just like the counterculture, have like a counterculture to the company, and they're they're hugely over with every crowd they go to. Like CM Punk is constantly gets the biggest pop at every show he's at, and it's just like the old days. Like even when Austin was heel, he'd get huge pops. So it's one of those things where I think that match would definitely draw a little more of my attention at least. So.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that in regards to you firing the question back at me, like you said, it's tough to me. It's tough for me to think of a match that's bigger off the top of my head.
Yeah.
This is a match to me that just proves the old saying of never say never, especially in
Yeah.
professional wrestling. I mean, I remember. I mean, there were at the abyss at the bottom of this kind of hiatus that The Rock took. Or I can't. I guess you can't even say hiatus. It was a real retirement. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it took several years for that to finally set in, and for me to say, there's a 99.9% chance that he's never going to step foot in that ring again. And you know, and at Survivor Series, seeing him actually, put the tights back on was just, I mean, an amazing moment. And for people that, for people that, want to hate on WWE to that extent, and believe me, I am no WWE mark, okay. But for people that want to hate on WWE to that extent that they can't even get enjoyment out of The Rock coming back at Survivor Series, are just plain, they're looking at the glass half empty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is what I have to say about that. And it was an amazing moment. And it's just like I said, it's one of those never say never things because John Cena kept reaching out and reaching out and reaching out, and there is some, I mean, real heat between these two.
Yeah.
And it's just something that it's just like, when this finally happened, and I found out that it was going to be booked at WrestleMania 28, and not only booked at Mania 28, but it had a full year of build up. It was just something that I couldn't believe. And I mean, I don't know. Now we're probably a little bit older now than some of the newer fans that have kind of stepped into WWE's fan base. But I will say that this is without a doubt the biggest match of the PG era.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even if you want to take it a step further back than that, maybe, well, there was kind of a transitional point between from when the Attitude Era ended and today's era, which is kind of like the end of '02 to '03 and '04, up to like in the beginning of '07, that kind of those years. And I think that this is definitely the biggest match from we'll say from 2004 to present. That's what I would say. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so that's my thoughts on that, and that in itself is just amazing. And I'm gonna do, I don't care where I am, what I have going on. I'm gonna be sitting in front of that television that night and giving this thing my full attention. So,
Yeah.
um, but the other thing, one of the other main things that I wanted to bring up with you that I've been thinking about, and it's something again that I haven't heard anybody bring up is, do you think that there's a possibility that match starts that night, and much like what happened at WrestleMania 18 with The Rock and Hogan, when everybody thought that Hogan was going to get booed, let's flip it around. Do you think that there's any way that The Rock gets booed in his hometown of Miami that night?
Honestly, Jake, I really think that. Let's put it this way: I would be totally and completely stunned if it wasn't a very partisan crowd for The Rock, simply because, like, look what we saw at Survivor Series. The crowd booed every second that The Rock was in the ring, and then when he was in, it was electric. And another point that makes me think that they're not even going to attempt to boo him is they're in Miami. It's his hometown. He played college football at the U there. There's a lot of history there for him. And granted, like, I know when he was heel and he first came back, I know people booed him a lot in his Lesnar match because everybody knew that was like his last match in 2002. And then they booed him at WrestleMania 19 against Austin, simply because I think it was more like he was a heel thing, and people kind of played on the fact that he was leaving and he was heel and he was kind of shoving his new acting career down people's throats. But honestly, like, it's become such a cult, not a cult thing. It's become such a popular thing to boo Cena and, to say you can't wrestle to him and just chants at Cena. Yeah. And it would stun the hell out of me, simply because I think it's become, no matter how many promos that Cena can cut saying that he's going to rise above the hate, I still think he's always going to have just fountains of hate poured on him, because it's one of those things where the guy's been shoved down our throats for so long that even, like, let's put it this way: WrestleMania is an event where all the big time fans usually attend it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's people coming from like all over the country and different countries to see it live, and it's normally big fans if they're willing to travel that far. Like, it's not like one of those things where if you're a 10-year-old kid and you tell your dad, "Hey, Dad, can we go to Miami for WrestleMania?" and you live in Atlanta. It's one of those things where it's going to take a lot of interest for your dad to make that call and for you to go. So I think there's going to be a lot of local kids maybe at this show that'll support Cena. But I think in terms of the diehards and stuff, it's definitely going to be a pro Rock crowd.
Well, yeah, and that's essentially why I bring up the point, because if there was a night for something like that to happen, it would be that night. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, definitely.
And I agree with what you're saying. On the other hand, though, I think that some people are still a little sour, about
Yeah,
the
yeah, definitely.
about the Rock leaving. But I think that, and I was for a very long time. But the thing to me is that if a guy wants to come and say that, it's one thing if you just turn your back on the company and the fans and get the hell out of town. That's one thing. But The Rock saying, he loved wrestling. He continues to love wrestling, and the truth of the matter is that he honestly believes, and I agree with him, that he did do everything in the company. He accomplished everything that he wanted to accomplish, and and he has other interests. He has other hobbies. He has other things that he's good at in his life and that he wanted to pursue. And as not only a wrestling fan, but as a human being, that's something that I have to respect. You know what I mean? And I think that a lot of people are kind of warming up to that. If I think there were any boos that The Rock was going to get, I think they probably would have surfaced by now. And and obviously the few appearances he's made, it hasn't happened yet. So I don't think it's going to happen. But I just think that was kind of a cool thing to think about that no one's really brought up, or that I don't think anybody's even thought about yet, is could that be possible? And whether we think it is or we don't think it's going to happen, I think it's just kind of a cool scenario to think about. Like, what if, how crazy that would have been, or how crazy that would be. But the other thing is, do you think that they're going to have a clear face and a clear heel walk into this thing? Because they're doing that angle now with, will Cena turn his back on the fans, blah blah. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Did that great. I thought it was a great promo that he did with Piper about a month ago on Raw about.
I honestly did not see that. So you probably have a better opinion, like a smarter opinion of it, simply because I just didn't see it. I mean, I think it would add a lot more if they had too clear, like a clear hero and a clear baby face. But I think it's one of those things where sadly it dwells away from what would be a good story.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes to business.
Yeah.
WWE sells a lot of merchandise to kids through John Cena, and there's anything I can say. When I was a kid, it was tough for me to like certain heels. Like, hell, even like back to a few years ago, I couldn't. In 2005 and 2006, I couldn't stomach Edge as a heel. I just thought it was just ridiculous how they would book him as like this great top tier wrestler, and he would just cash in Money in the Bank checks after Money in the Bank opportunities, and it was one of those things where little kids, they tend to like the good guy no matter who it is. It's very easy for them to turn on somebody that's good and then really bad all of a sudden, And plus, it's just one of those things where Cena has created this character for himself that I just can't see working as a heel. I mean, if he was to go back and be like the rapper where he just dissed people all the time, that'd be one thing. But it's just one of those things where those old raps, I actually watched a few of them. It'd be tough for him to pull that off with a PG crowd. Granted, he did it with The Rock.
Yeah.
In March, I think it was, last year, but still, it was still like not the same.
Yeah.
And I just think this rise above the hate thing has kind of snowballed into something so big that I really cannot see him going heel. I mean, maybe, who knows, The Rock could somehow, some way become heel, but I just don't think that he wants to do that. I don't think he'd come back for that either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, what do you think? And do you think there's even the possibility of it happening?
I think that there is a possibility, and the only reason that I say that is that there was actually some talk going around the internet a couple months ago that WWE was actually, this is, I just roll my eyes at this because if this actually happened, I would have been so pissed, but that's beyond the point. But there was a rumor going around the internet a couple months back that WWE was actually considering canceling this match because they're fearful that John Cena is going to go to Miami and get booed. And from a business standpoint, the WWE is this multi-million-dollar corporation. And I can, as lame as it sounds, and as much as I want to roll my eyes at it, from a business standpoint, I can see how they wouldn't want their biggest star to get just booed out of the house on their biggest night of the year. You know what I mean? It doesn't.
I mean, it's one of those things, though. Like they've got to realize it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Think about every like memorable crowd.
Yeah.
Like when I say memorable crowd, I mean one that like definitely sticks in your mind. Like obviously, the one that sticks in my mind the most is either Money in the Bank last year or possibly WrestleMania 22 in the Cena Triple H match, and possibly ECW One Night Stand 2006. Like those are all memorable crowds, and why are they memorable? Because he gets just mercilessly booed and chanted against. Like I don't know. It's one of those things where WrestleMania is such a big stage, though. Like I really think it's going to be a very pro Rock crowd.
Oh, definitely.
I don't know.
Don't get me wrong. I'm hoping
it's going to be overbearingly pro. Like, I mean, I guess this kind of contradicts what I said earlier, but I just can't picture it being like Money in the Bank. Like, just I feel like there's going to be some Cena fans there. Like I said,
just because they're from all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And although my example, that their little kids aren't going to travel for this show, there's still a lot of people out there that's really like him. You know.
Yeah.
So,
no,
I mean,
yeah,
I think that'd be so stupid if they canceled it, obviously, because of that reason. But, it's like I've told my brother many times, never underestimate the stupidity of WWE.
Yeah.
So,
and I wholeheartedly agree on that.
Yeah.
The thing about it is the fact that I think that what we can expect, though, as far as I'm concerned, is that if Cena walks into that match as still a face and saying, I'm going to rise above the hate, like you said, I think we can expect him to go over. Because, and I'll tell you why. The kind of the key thing to me here in this storyline is that The Rock is going out and he is kind of attacking Cena for I don't want to say petty reasons, but he's picking on him, kind of like a bully would pick on, a smaller kid or a younger kid. You know what I mean? Like, oh, the clothes you wear, like, you know what I mean? And like all your kiddie fans, they love you, and I want to beat the hell out of you. And Cena's kind of standing on the other end, not necessarily saying, I want to get you in the ring and beat you, but he's saying, I want to get you in the ring, period, because this is what the fans want. You know what I mean? He's not saying, I want to kick your ass. He's saying, like, and not making it a personal thing. He's saying, like, he's saying, like, I just want you back in the WWE. I want you to be back here entertaining the fans, And I think that's kind of the key factor in the storyline. So I think if we don't see a clear face and a clear heel on Cena's end, then I think that we can expect Cena to go over. So, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on it? Who do you think is going to walk out the winner?
I mean, yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot. It's so tough for me to think that The Rock's going to leave there the winner.
Yeah.
I think, like you said earlier, these guys genuinely do not really like each other, which adds a whole new monster to this. But I mean, I really don't see him going over, simply because it makes Cena look so bad, and he's there on a nightly basis. The Rock's there like a few nights a year, so. And who's to say he's going to be back again in 2012 after this? I just think it would make Cena look bad, and I got to say, I really would not have a big problem with him going over if it was compelling, which in his case is very it tends not to happen that way a lot.
Yeah.
But I just really can't see The Rock going over simply because I don't know what you've seen in terms of like what people are saying about him that are on the current roster,
Yeah.
but it sounds like a lot of people are pissed about this match. Although it may be subtle talk and not really talked about, I just think a lot of people are like, all right, well, this guy, hasn't wrestled in years, and he comes back and he's the show. Like that's
yeah.
And it's one of those things where I think The Rock's smart enough to know that Cena's going to be there for a while, and I just don't see him having too much of a problem letting him go over. He's kind of bested him a lot, like the last few times he's been around him. So, including ending Survivor Series with rock bottoming him at WrestleMania last year. I just don't, I don't see it. I just don't see it happening where, he goes over. It's really tough for me to picture a way they would do it and make it work and still have Cena be credible.
Right. Right. Yeah. The fact that we're talking about Cena still being credible after that match is amazing. After how many dozens of people he's pinned, it's just. But that's a whole different story.
Yeah, it is.
But I think I agree too. I think that if I had gun to my head right now, if I had to pick, I'd say Cena's walking out with the victory. The one thing that I will say though, that I give The Rock a lot of credit for, and I was talking with my friend Nick about this when I was coming home from Raw a couple weeks ago. I give him so much credit because he wanted to make sure that his return was something special and that he wouldn't have to change his style, his approach, his mic work, just what made The Rock The Rock. He wouldn't have to change that to suit the PG era and the PG fans and the PG just way of operation in that company. He said, if I want to come back, I respect the management. I respect, respect you, Vince. I respect the company that you've built and the changes that you've made. But you've got to let me do me. So I think that I respect him so much about it because, and that's another thing. This is getting a little bit off topic, but that's why there was never a doubt in my mind that he was going to be 110% at Survivor Series because he has so much pride in his work that there's no way he's going to show up to that event out of shape, physically. And there's no way he's going to be botching and all because he has too much pride in what he does. And I give him so much credit for that. So transitioning this back to their match that they're going to have at WrestleMania, I think Cena will win. But with that being said, I don't think that this is going to be a typical John Cena match. Something special is going to happen even if Cena goes over because I think the chances of The Rock just getting in there and saying, okay, let's go back and forth for 15 or 20 minutes and then you can hit the spinning power bomb on me, hit the 5-knuckle shuffle, and then I'll stumble into an attitude adjustment and you can pin me in the center of the ring. I don't think that that's going to happen. Okay, I just don't think that it's going to go that easy. I think there's going to be something memorable, and like I said, regardless of how this match turns out, I think just because of the build and the two guys that are involved, I'll probably remember this match forever. I intend to be a wrestling fan forever, and however this turns out, I'll at least remember it happening. But no, I don't. I think Cena will win, but in conclusion, at the same time, I don't think The Rock's going to it's going to be your typical lay down in the center of the ring for the 3 count from that typical series of finishing moves from Cena. I can't see that happening. And that brings me to one of my final points. I mean, how would you kind of book the aftermath here? Do you think there's going to be a handshake? Do you think there's going to be a hug like in Rock versus Hogan? Do you think, someone's going to walk away from the handshake or something like that? Do you think that at the end the crowd will give Cena an applause, or
I think, they won't hug.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if they did. I think The Rock will be like, it'll be one of those things like, The Rock shakes Cena's hand, and then kind of like applauds and then leaves the ring, and then Cena kind of celebrates, and that's how the show cuts out. I mean, I don't think it'll be anything more than that. I think it'll probably be like an issue of like The Rock will be like staring him down, and people will think he's gonna like rock bottom him or something.
Yeah.
And he'll just kind of extend his hand, and it'll be like one of those things where Cena's like, you know, what the hell's happening? But I mean, I'd be surprised if they hug because, like I said, they genuinely are not big fans of each other, from what I've heard. So, so it'd be surprising if it went that far. Plus, I think the Hogan thing was, it kind of came down to The Rock was such a big fan that the hug wasn't terribly surprising, you know? Yeah. So it's kind of like more of a different element, you know?
I have a similar opinion to that. I think you can probably expect to see something like if I had to pick. We both don't want to come off like we know what's going to happen.
Yeah, This
is just purely us bouncing ideas off of each other, trying to get you guys to think about these ideas, et cetera, et cetera. But I think if I had to say, I think something that might happen is, Cena picks up the win after a hard-fought match, and I think something that may happen in terms of the actual finish is they could do something old school, like Cena pins The Rock, but he kicks out like just after the 3 count. You know what I mean? Like they used to do in those old matches.
Yeah, like Ultimate Warrior.
Right. Yeah, I could see something like that happening. I don't think The Rock's going to be knocked out in the center of the ring with John Cena raising his hands at the end. That goes back to what I said earlier. I just don't think that would make that would be good. So I
also pray to God he doesn't tap out to the
we want a pinfall here. We want a 1-2-3 pin.
Oh man,
that's one thing. I'm glad you brought that up because that's one thing that I would just be so pissed about, whether it's on either end. I mean, I can't see Cena submitting, but anyway. But I could see them have an idea to make The Rock submit, and that would be just terrible. But
stupid.
But anyway, I could see something happening like The Rock kicking out just after the 3 count, and then them showing him with his head down and getting pissed off and like just getting frustrated and being frustrated with himself after the match and saying God damn it, kind of having his his hand on his forehead, on his face like this, and just being real frustrated with himself, and then, him making his and like just like you said, teasing, hitting Cena after the match and being a poor sport about it, and and maybe the crowd gives Cena a little friendly applause, and then they shake hands, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could also see something like I could see a after-match promo, definitely.
Yeah, actually that's a good point. I mean, it's like I've said in the past, I'm often wrong about stuff. You definitely have a better eye for predicting how stuff's going to transpire. I mean, the promo, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. I just, like I said, it's hard for me to envision. They build this whole time, and The Rock attacks him or Cena attacks him, unless maybe they're trying to get a Cena heel turn. That's the only way I can really see him turning heel, is like he wins and then attacks The Rock or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it's going to come down to, it's just going to be one of those things where it's going to be like a real promo at the end. You know, it's not going to be kayfabe. It's just going to be like a real Rock saying, like, I'm glad the company's in your hands or something like that, blah, 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 It's one of those things, but yeah, I mean, wow, it's like, I mean, God, I keep going back to this heel turn thing. It's just so tough for me to really see that happening.
Yeah.
Regardless,
Yeah.
But
that's the thing though. I mean, regardless of it's one of those things that, like, I have a pretty good idea that I really do think Cena's going to win, but I'm still going to be watching that night, honestly, like, with everything up in the air.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? Like, I could see a whole variety of things unfolding that night. This is just something that if I had to say, but yeah, I could definitely see a promo, and like you said, it's going to be something that's straight from the heart. And I think that you could see, I could definitely say Cena saying something like I was talking about earlier, like, look, Rock, like, regardless if I had walked out of here with my hands held high, my only wish from the start of this thing, from when we started talking shit to each other years ago, my only wish was to be with you in this ring right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And regardless of whether I had walked out the winner, that was my only wish. So I was walking out here out of Miami tonight a winner no matter what. You know what I mean? Like something like that. Um, and and The Rock coming back with, like, I still don't consider you a friend. I don't even like you that much, but I damn well respect you now, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and then the last thing that we're guys, if you're still with us, I really appreciate it. Our video's going pretty long here, but the last
Yeah.
thing,
How much time are we at? Out of curiosity.
we're at 30 right now. So
oh Jesus! Yeah, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, but my last question, I don't even know if you'd have an answer for this right now, but look, the ball's in completely your hands right now. How would you book it if you could? How would you book the finish?
Honestly, man, I think given what we've talked about, how we don't want to tap out or anything like that, I would be fine with Cena hitting like 2 or 3 FUs or attitude adjustments.
Yeah.
Something like Rock Stone Cold at WrestleMania 19, which we talked about briefly earlier.
Yeah.
Like 3 finishers and The Rock just finally can't get up, I think would be perfect, in my opinion. What about you?
I was going to say the same exact thing. The only other I was going to say the same exact thing is that, honestly, we're on the complete same page. The only other thing that I really hope that they do, which I think would be so cool, is the Cena have The Rock in the center of the ring, and then that when he goes for that 5-knuckle shuffle, everybody is just going to be just booing the hell out of that move, because it's people's elbow versus the 5-knuckle shuffle, pretty much a what do you call it,
pizzazz move.
Yeah, exactly. So and then Cena turns his back and tries to go off the ropes, and The Rock nips up and gives him a rock bottom,
awesome.
or drops him with a spine buster, and then sets up for the people's elbow. I think that would be something that would be so sick.
Incredible. Yeah, I agree.
Those are the only in terms of like spots or booking that I can honestly say right now. 2 or 3 months before that, I really hope that they do. So anyway. I think that's pretty much it. We've covered a lot of stuff, dude. So, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you enjoyed our first kind of experimental trial here with our dual videos, with one of us appearing on Skype. So, thank you guys for watching. This has been The Breakdown. I'm Jake.
And I'm Brian.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.